Hi everybody, my name is Michael Pleshakov. I'm a platform integration engineer at NGINX, and today I will talk about load balancing on Kubernetes with NGINX. So I'll start with a few questions to you guys. So who's currently using containers, like in production? Oh no, okay.
Who doesn't?
Okay, cool. And who's using Kubernetes to run containers? Wow, bunch of hands. Yeah. And so last year we held a conference in Austin, like almost a year ago. Has anybody been at that conference? Oh, cool. So last year we also had a talk about load balancing on Kubernetes, and so since last year, some things changed, and so more and more companies now use Kubernetes to run production workloads. But Kubernetes continues to be the leader in container orchestration. Thank you for that. And more and more load balancing options are also available. So more Ingress controllers implementation, and also the service mesh technology. So recently emerged, and it also addresses the load balancing as well. And if you're interested in learning about service meshes, come for our talk at 1:40 p.m. today, and you will learn about Istio, the service mesh project, and also how to use NGINX with Istio. Well, things that didn't change much are requirements for a load balancer. So it must be high performant, stable, has features available, and also flexible in how you configure it and deploy it. So in this talk, we will learn how to do load balancing on Kubernetes with Ingress, which is the Kubernetes native way to configure HTTP load balancing. And also, we will see how to use NGINX with Ingress. Well, and we also try to see if NGINX addresses requirements on this slide. So for those of you who don't know much about Kubernetes, Kubernetes allows you to run containerized applications across a cluster of machines. And you can also, it allows you to run and manage those applications. You can scale those applications, even auto scale, do rolling upgrades seamlessly. Kubernetes adds resilience to your applications, so it can restart failed containers. It also connects your application together with built-in internal service discovery and load balancing mechanisms. And of course, there's so much more in Kubernetes. Let's start with a simple demo. We will deploy a web application and configure load balancing for that application using Ingress. So I'm not going to type those commands. So there's a script that helps me type those commands so I don't make any mistakes. So it is a live demo. So the first thing is that I just wanted to show that I have a cluster with 3 nodes by running kubectl get nodes command. And the second thing, I will deploy 2 web applications. Actually, 1 web application that consists of 2 web applications. So the first web application is called Conference app. I will run 2 containers of this application using the image from the private Docker registry, and I export this application on port 8000, and I will use the kubectl run command to do that. So let's do that. Okay, And now, so the deployment was created. So now we will create a service for that deployment for load balancing purposes. And as I said, there is a second application as well. So similarly, using the kubectl run command, we will deploy that application. But this time we only deploy one container. And we also similarly create a service for the newly created deployment. And let's just check that those containers are running using kubectl get post command. So they are running. So now let's configure load balancing for that application. And let's look into the Ingress configuration file. So this is the Ingress resource that on Kubernetes you use it to configure load balancing. Not this one, this one. So what we have here is that we define a virtual server with a hostname conf.example.com, and we define two path-based rules for load balancing. And so the first rule is that for all requests that start with the URI that starts with schedule, those requests will go to the schedule app, and all other requests will go to the conference app. And we also configure SSL termination for our application, for our virtual server. And we reference a secret here. The secret is another Kubernetes resource for storing sensitive information such as SSL certificates and keys. So we reference this secret that we create separately. So let's deploy the secret, and let's deploy the Ingress configuration. Great. So now we can try to connect to our application. So just using curl, let's simply send a request to the application. So it's conference.example.com. So yeah, and the response came from the conference application. And if we add the schedule to the URL, we get the response from the schedule application. Great. So what happened behind the scene? Let's go back to our slides. So in our cluster, we have NGINX container running, and this NGINX is configured to load balance our conference containers and the schedule container. And also, our NGINX container is exposed to the outside of the cluster through the Google Cloud Network Load Balancer. So the client connects first to the Cloud Load Balancer, and then this load balancer sends a request to NGINX, and then NGINX distributes request to the appropriate application. So, but NGINX doesn't support Ingress resources natively. We need to somehow to translate that Ingress configuration into NGINX configuration. So there is a piece of software called Ingress Controller, and this software runs alongside NGINX in the same container, and this software, through the Kubernetes API, it monitors the cluster state and all the deployed Ingress resources. And when it sees, for example, that you have deployed an Ingress resource, it transforms this resource into NGINX configuration and reloads NGINX with this new configuration. So that's how it works. No magic here. If we go back to our Ingress resource, second. Okay. So again, we configured SSL termination, virtual server, and 2 path-based rules. So Ingress doesn't allow us to, doesn't provide any other features for you to use. So, and the question becomes is it really important that we use NGINX here? Because this is the very simple load balancing. The question, is it the question, sorry? Oh, no. And the answer is yes. It is important that we use NGINX because of our requirements for high performance and stability. We also deploy NGINX in a container, so we manage it as a Kubernetes application, so we can update our application easily, also scale it as well. Update and scale NGINX. And also, it is important to note that NGINX is, with NGINX Ingress controller, the reconfiguration happens very fast. So it only takes 1 or 2 seconds for NGINX to get reconfigured when you deploy a new application with a new Ingress configuration. In contrast with, for example, cloud load balancers, that for them it takes quite a while, at least 1 minute to get allocated. Well, and we also get all in NGINX logs and NGINX Plus metrics, so we can see what's going on in our applications. So I didn't show you the dashboard, but let's just see that this is the NGINX Plus dashboard for our particular application. So we have the two our conference upstreams and our upstream servers and the schedule upstream server, and we can see all the real-time metrics here on this dashboard. So let's go back. So it's important that we even if we don't use much features with Ingress, it is still important for us that we have NGINX running. But the other thing is how we can use all those NGINX features that it is known to be good for. And those can be authentication and access control, connection and request limiting, choosing different load balancing algorithm, enabling session persistence. So let's have a second demo where we secure our application with JSON web tokens, JOTs. Takes quite some time to switch between the screens. So let's deploy this. Let's change our Ingress resource. So this is the newly updated one. So here we use something called annotations. And those annotations allow us to configure some of the NGINX features. So here we say, and annotations are basically the key value strings that you can attach to any Kubernetes resource, including Ingress. And this annotation are understood by our Ingress controller. And here we configure JOT authentication. So we specify the rel to use and also the key which references a secret where we store our keys for validating tokens. So let's deploy the secret where we store the key with our tokens and let's update our Ingress resource using kubectl replace command. So now if we try to access our application, we will get a 401 response code. So something changed. So we must specify JSON web tokens with our request so that the NGINX can allow us to use our application. So here we with the request, we set an authorization header with bearer, and then we insert our valid JOT token. So if we do that, we get access to our application. So this example showed us how to use annotations to try to utilize NGINX features. For example, here we configured JOT authentication. But there are several other annotations, for example, if you want to enable session persistence, that are also available. Another thing with NGINX is how to fine-tune its behavior. For example, sometimes it is necessary to change the connection timeouts used by NGINX for establishing connections to the backends. And there are other parts of NGINX configuration that sometimes are needed to be changed. So there is a config maps resource that you can deploy in Kubernetes, and this resource allows you to define key value string pairs, and NGINX can understand those values. NGINX Ingress controller can understand those values that you put in the config map and immediately apply this, change the NGINX configuration accordingly, according to those values. So this allows you to fine-tune NGINX behavior. Well, also there are a few advanced techniques. So if you have special requirements, you can use the annotations, the group of annotations called Snippets, and those annotations allow you to insert random NGINX configuration snippet into the generated config files. So for example, here we have the location snippet annotation, to which we assign the NGINX configuration snippet. And when we deploy the Ingress resource with this annotation, what will happen is that the generated config files in every location for that particular Ingress resource, you will find this configuration. And this snippet annotation allows you to use a lot of NGINX features and to customize NGINX behavior. Alternatively, there's another way. NGINX Ingress controller uses the configuration templates to generate the configuration files, and you can change those templates as well, and you can insert any NGINX configuration that is required for you, and you rebuild the Ingress controller image with NGINX, and you will have your configuration in NGINX. So to summarize, the Ingress is Kubernetes way for configuring load balancing, HTTP load balancing. It's very easy to use, but it lacks many important features that vary. The important for this type of external or edge load balancing. But as a side note, you can also use the Ingress not only on Kubernetes but also on OpenShift, which is the version of Kubernetes built by Red Hat. So with NGINX, you can use the Ingress rules, and you can use various extensions, so which allow you to address your requirements. And with NGINX as an Ingress controller, you will get the high performance, stability, flexibility of deployment, as I said, faster configuration, and also advanced features that are available. And with NGINX Plus, you will get advanced NGINX Plus features and also support. So we announcing that the Ingress controller, when used with NGINX Plus, is supported by us officially. So you can open a support tickets with our support system. And that's pretty much it. Here's the resources that you can that will help you get started. So everything is available on GitHub. You can download the sources, build the container images, and start deploying the Ingress controller. Or alternatively, you can use the image from our Docker Hub repo, but it's only available for NGINX, not NGINX Plus. And so the software that I used to run the demo that eliminates my typing is called Demo Magic. So if you want to check it out as well. So do you have any questions? Yes, please.
How would you compare Kubernetes to like Swarm? How would you? What recommends one over the other?
So Kubernetes became more popular than Swarm, and that's what we see from our people asking us also about it. And we have more questions about Kubernetes than Swarm, but they're pretty comparable in features. They don't have yet the Ingress, something similar to Ingress, but I think they're trying to address this problem of external load balancing. Yes, please.
Is the industry scaling the Ingress load balancer or the DNS load balancer? Is that very commonplace? Is that what you do with the cloud is doing?
So it didn't. Let me go back to the slides. So here we had the one NGINX container running, but if your load increases, you can add additional containers with Kubernetes.
That network element, you're saying that's a DNS load balancer?
So this one is it's not a DNS load, it's a Google network load balancer. So this load balancer gives you one IP address per region on Google Cloud. And this load balancer is a TCP UDP load balancer. And through this load balancer, we access the NGINX containers running in our cluster.
So, I mean, this is a related question. Why would you need that? Why can't you make that of the public endpoint and register it instead of using the Google?
Yes, so you have a few options. So this is the easiest one if you use Google Cloud. On how to expose the NGINX container to the outside of the cluster. So there are other techniques as well. So you can run the NGINX container on every node of your cluster or some nodes of your cluster. And you can do Docker port mapping to access the NGINX on those nodes. And then you can either put another load balancer in front of those nodes where NGINX is running, or you can use DNS load balancing for that. But you will must configure it by yourself. So in this case, Kubernetes took care of configure and allocating Google Cloud load balancer. And for other cloud providers such as Amazon and Azure, this feature is also available. Yes, please.
So here is like when you installing deploying the Ingress controller is more like a declarative. What if somebody want to change it like on the fly or runtime, like planning to provide any API to like, let's say the JWT key, I want to update that key. Instead of deploying another Ingress controller with the updated manifest file, are you planning to provide any API for that? Or?
So the Ingress controller is multi-tenant, so you deploy as many Ingress resources as you need for different applications. And then if you update those resources with Kubernetes commands, those changes will be reflected in the NGINX configuration.
But you will deploy a new container project.
No. So you don't need to deploy anything. So the Ingress controller software.
Update the configuration.
Yes. So it will update NGINX configuration on the fly. Either changing the configuration and doing a reload, or using NGINX Plus on the fly reconfiguration. And for JOT authentication, if you update the secret with the keys, Ingress controller will see that you updated the keys, and it will change the file on the file system. And with the JOT keys, you don't have to reload NGINX to apply the new key. You can change the key on the fly.
case where it watches the resources and reconfigures?
No, but I can. So I did it when I updated the Ingress configuration from one to another. But I can quickly show you another case of changing the configuration. For example, we have the two containers here for the conference app. So what we can do is just simply using kubectl scale deployment command. And it's conference app, and we say that they want to have 6 replicas. And maybe this is the correct one. Yeah. So you will see that those containers are added to NGINX. So this is the task of the Ingress controller. So if we go back to slides, the Ingress controller software, it constantly monitors the Kubernetes API for any changes in the cluster. New Ingress resources, updates to Ingress resources, updates to secrets, updates to the endpoints. So that's why those changes were quickly reflected here. Yes, please.
Is there any tool for moving my old NGINX configs to NGINX files?
No, there's not. But there is an alternative to Ingress. So if you have your old files, current files, there's another way how to you can just deploy NGINX on Kubernetes with that configuration. However, there's a problem on how you can update. Since the container endpoints changing, like we saw here, we scaled the deployment from 2 containers to 6, right? So those changes must be reflected in NGINX configuration. And you can use NGINX Plus on-the-fly reconfiguration. And you can use this service discovery through DNS. So NGINX Plus will periodically send the request to Kubernetes internal DNS server to discover the endpoints. And say every 5 seconds. And when the records are changed as a result of scaling, the NGINX Plus will get reconfigured. However, you cannot change the configuration on the fly, only the endpoints. So that's the restriction. Well, thanks, guys. If you want to